The planting of a fruit tree or a set of fruit trees is not or should not be a haphazard thing. There's some great intentionality in terms of the planning of setting up an orchard, whether it's 1, 10, 100, or 1,000 trees. You need to think about a lot of factors. I'm going to talk a little bit about one. That's tree size, and it's dictated largely by rootstock. Let me just say, when you're planting an orchard, it's a bit of a orchard jigsaw puzzle, or akin to the old Rubik's Cube. In order to put smiles on the faces of the growers and the eaters, you have to line up all the cubes. The colors must be in alignment. So let's look at two trees here. One is a marvelous old Santa Rosa plum, planted in 71-72, the winter thereof, on what was then considered to be a dwarfing rootstock. Ha ha. Not really, but it's the best we had at the time. It's called Mirabilin, which is basically a seedling plum. Originally, when these trees reached full canopy, they were 20+ feet tall. About 15 years ago, we decided we're so over 16 and 20-foot ladders in terms of efficiency or lack thereof, in terms of safety, ladder safety. So we began a process of bringing down the height of the tree. And what we've done here is basically halved the height of the tree. We have a tree that is 12 to 15 foot tall and reasonably managed with 5 and 8 foot ladders. But there have been some marvelous advances in terms of breeding of rootstock. Rootstock determines primarily tree size, and there are a range of rootstocks, from the most mini dwarf on apples, which can get you a nice 4-foot compact tree, to semi-dwarf things with stone fruits. Now let me just state that stone fruits are upright, rambunctious, and vigorous. They've got a mind of their own. They want to ramble skyward. So the best you can do is semi-dwarf. But one great stone fruit rootstock that's been around for 20 or so years is called Citation. So I have an example of Citation here, the rootstock with the same variety, Santa Rosa plum, on it. And what have we got? We've got a tree that's about 6 years old. It's at full canopy, and it is at maturation maybe 10 feet tall. And as I said, owing to the rambunctious nature of stone fruits, and the Japanese plums are the leader in the field, this is about as dwarf as you're going to get. So I'm pretty good with that. I can manage this tree reasonably so from a 3rd rung on a 5-foot ladder, or maybe the 4th or 5th rung on an 8-foot ladder. And I can prune a tree like this in maybe 15 minutes with a couple ladder sets, whereas the tall Santa Rosa will take an experienced pruner an hour plus with 5 or 6 ladder sets. And so it's a matter of time economy and efficiency. And the old adage is, well, if you can't prune it, you sure as heck can't thin or pick it. So let's think about tree size, let's think about rootstocks. And addition, so that's all genetically imparted to the tree. The genetic tendency of a rootstock to dwarf a tree is just that. But there are also horticultural means by which you can keep trees relatively short, and that goes to pruning. Let's take a little stroll and talk about tree spacing. Spacing between trees in the row. Come on. Okay, on my right here we have the marvelous old, planted in 71-72, almost full-size Santa Rosa plums. They're at about 22-foot spacing in row, and that's good. Again, large trees that have been brought down to about half their original size through horticultural means, pruning. Let's look over here on my left. As time moves on and with the advances of dwarfing rootstocks, these are the same varieties. Santa Rosa plum on a more dwarfing rootstock, Citation at about 15-foot spacing. And it certainly is a tidy, compact tree. Again, The caveat being for a stone fruit, and especially a Santa Rosa, which is vigorous and rambunctious and easier to manage. But then I got to thinking, always dangerous, sometimes frowned upon by the higher-ups, we're kind of wasting space here. Sunlight is falling on the ground. I mean, that's good for soil warmth and microbiology and all that jazz. But it's, in a sense, from a tree grower's perspective, wasted sunlight. So I thought about, what if we put another tree between these two trees at 15-foot spacing? But it needs to be a more dwarf tree. So I selected a French improved prune plum, which is among the most sweet fruits fresh off the tree on the planet. And I inserted it, as it were, in between. Let's take a little stroll down the row here and look at what I've done. Let's take a look at what I've done here, what we've got here with the marvelous advancement of dwarfing rootstocks. We have, as mentioned, planted about 5-6 years ago Santa Rosa plum on the semi-dwarfing citation rootstock at 15-foot spacing in row. 1, 2. These trees are mature and at full canopy. But as I was saying, hey, we're wasting space here. And so I planted a French improved prune plum on a similar rootstock citation. And the French improved prune plum is inherently genetically a more compact dwarf tree than the Santa Rosa. So it's going to top out, well, it actually is topping out at about 8 feet. And this is just a good way to fill the space so that you're intercepting the maximum amount of sunlight you can in a tree row. I also like the fact that you've got a little diversity in terms of your fruit type. The Santa Rosa plum comes on among the earliest of all plums in late June through mid-July. And the prune plum is a little later on its heels, about third week in July through the middle of August. So I've got an extended harvest period of something that's very plum-like.